Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Ladd, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 188. We are, as I say every week, moving more closely to our 200th episode. And we've got a cracking episode this week. And after 188 episodes, or on the 188th episode, we have never talked about what we are going to talk about today. So it's something new for us, which I think hopefully is going to be interesting for you as well. And I will just quickly say before we move on, we can read the reviews. I keep saying we're going to do these reviews, but there has been some more recent reviews that haven't come through yet. So we're just trying to work out why that is on our Apple podcast. Like I said, we are wanting you to post reviews in there. Probably do it on the Apple podcast setup, and then we will be giving away merch for people leaving reviews when they come through. We'll read them and send out either t-shirts or hoodies for Health Oddity. But do put the reviews in there, and when we can read them, we can see all the old ones, but we can't see some more recent ones. So we need to get to the bottom of that. And I've just been doing that with Pete beforehand, but we haven't done it yet. Anyway, I wanted to give that at the start, just so you're not hanging on to the end, waiting to see who's getting a t-shirt or a hoodie, because it's no one this week. Anyway, so Pete, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. This is going to be very confusing because we've just talked about the timeline of how this works. And we're talking about a film that you will have seen by the time this goes out, but you haven't seen quite yet because it's 3 weeks ago. And then talking to these guys about what they're going to do with the film afterwards as well. It's hilarious because it's all before the event. It's brilliant. I love it. I love podcast land. It's great.
It is. But when people listen to this, they listen to it in order. So, they'll be up to date when we get to it. Cool. Now, we are joined today by a returning guest and a first-time guest. We've got two people joining us today on the podcast. First person is Mr. Oliver Loom, who is a documentary filmmaker who we had on before when his first documentary feature came out called The Summit Mentality, which was all about a 24-hour relay race up and down Mount Snowdon in Wales. Now, that was way back on episode 133. So that was about 55 episodes ago. So it was about a year ago, probably. Ollie, yeah, about a year ago we had
well, it probably was around this time last year.
Yeah. So 55 weeks ago, Ollie was on last time, and he has a new film coming out called False 9, which we're going to talk about today. And we are also joined by Emma Rushen. Yeah,
that's correct.
Rushen, not
yeah, you got it correct.
Not Russian, yeah, Emma Rushen, who is a star of the film and also the producer of the film. So we've got two great guests talking about this film today. And I've not watched it yet, as Pete just mentioned. They're having the premiere this Saturday, 3 weeks ago, which this Saturday, and I will be watching it, and I'm really looking forward to it. I've seen the trailer and I've shared the trailer. Ollie's just popped off. Hopefully he's coming back on. So I will be watching it this Saturday, but we're going to be talking all around the film, the story behind the film, the people behind the film, and what it's all about. Now, as Ollie's just disappeared off of our screen, Emma,
that's fine.
I'm going to be heading over to you first. So, first of all, what is the basis, the story, the kind of the theme of the film, and then also I'd like to know why it's called False 9 as well, if possible. But it's called False 9, if I'm not mistaken. So Emma, do you want to start by kind of telling us a little bit about the story behind this film and what it's about?
Yeah, I guess. Well, it's about women's football at a grassroots level. I think there's a few different kind of messages in it, but it's overall, it's kind of creating a bit more noise and just making that level of women's football a bit more open to the public eye. Women's football has done amazing with WSL and the Lionesses in this country, and it's really kind of taken off. But the level that, you know, sort of at the grassroots level is still kind of quite hidden and doesn't really get as much coverage. So I guess that's the kind of overriding sort of theme, if you like. Whereas the messaging, there's a few messages really. There's a little bit like sort of around sort of mental health and just how sport in general just can play such a big part in people's lives with recovering sort of from any kind of sort of mental health. There's a storyline in there with regards to ACL injuries. Unfortunately, as a team, we had 3. And that's such a big thing, obviously, across the media and stuff at the moment. So again, it's just highlighting, you know, you see like the WSL players going through their ACL injury and, you know, back in 8 months or less than a year. And it's kind of a false economy because it's not like that at grassroots level. So I don't want to give too much away, but it helps to kind of show it what it's really like. And also, I guess, just to get to know the people.
Oh no. she
Ollie,
as well. I guess I'll take over from there.
You continue. You can hear exactly what Emma was saying there. You continue, which seemed to have a few little technical issues where Ollie dropped off.
I think I better get started on editing this one after.
No, it's all part of the beauty of what happens. Yeah. So Ollie, do you want to continue? As you kind of dropped off the screen, Emma was just introducing kind of the theme around the film and kind of roughly what it's about. But do you want to carry on from there?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, we talked a little bit there about sort of ACL injuries, and I feel like, as Emma said, like you'll see, like I don't know, a lioness will go out with an ACL injury and say, all right, they're back in 8 months. Obviously, players at grassroots level like don't have the access to the physios and the surgery and all the rest of it to come back from injury. So it can be quite a long while. And as well, like when you see someone going out injured, like a lot of the time you think like that's just it, all right, they're not playing football, but you don't see kind of what that does to them like mentally, and like what it's like going and seeing your friends play every week and then not being able to join in. Like for a lot of the girls in this team, they're all basically a big friend group. So then to feel left out, so this person I'm talking about is Gabby. She's the team captain, and football has been her life. She's been a part of this team since working with management. She was like 14. I think she might have even been younger than that. But I think Simon, who's the head coach, has been her coach since she was around 14. So she's progressed with this team. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, just one random day, just really hot day, landed funny. That's it. You're not playing football for, how long has it been, Emma? Like nearly 2 years?
Yeah, it'll be over a year. And I guess we can say it on here, but she is actually in the squad for the first time again this Sunday.
Okay. Excellent.
So,
what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold up this. Now, for those people who've been listening and watching for a while, this is called the acronym hammer. So when we talk about things, if we use acronyms, I tend to hold this up just to explain, because we're kind of throwing around ACL quite a lot. And I know that some people will know what ACL is, people who are in terms of sport and stuff, but just to explain to listeners. So the ACL is the anterior cruciate ligament that kind of crosses the front of the knee, and it essentially stops the knee twisting. Do you know what I mean? In a way that it shouldn't do. So a football injury and rugby, and I know personally, because I really damaged mine about 25 years ago, probably now, really badly, and I never had it operated on, but I can't do certain things. But yeah, it happens when the knee changes direction or twists, in a way that it shouldn't do, so things like football, rugby, certain sports where you need to stop and quickly change direction, or maybe you've got studs on a sticky floor or something like that, and you go to turn, but the leg doesn't turn as it should, and you can snap these ligaments in the knee, which is, like you're saying, is a serious injury for anyone, even people who are maybe at the top flights of sport, who have access to private medical care and instant sort of, they go straight into operating that day or the next day, and they have all the top rehab and top physios. So at a grassroots level, and as you know, if a layperson has an ACL injury and has to wait to get an appointment on the NHS and then has to kind of go through all this process, that's a big thing. So Emma, you were saying that you've had 3 people out with this fairly recently, and I presume covered on the documentary, is it?
Yeah, so it's all different variations because, like you say, the knee joint, there's, when you rupture your ACL, you can also rupture other. I'm not a medical doctor, so but you can also damage other ligaments. I think it's the MCL, and also like a lot of people end up with like tears in their meniscus and stuff as well. So that's what happened to Bex. Like, she damaged her meniscus. Gabby, as we've just spoken about, actually did all 3. She speaks about not doing things by halves and says she didn't do that by half either.
Yeah.
And then Abby, again, same story. First training session back pre-season to this season, and we were just playing a game of tag to warm up, and she just twisted and she ruptured her ACL. So yeah, it's a really nasty injury that can happen really simply, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And one of the things they're discovering now in women's football is a lot of it can come down to the type of boots that you wear. Even, I know you're all men, but the menstrual cycle has an impact in it because it makes all the ligaments looser. And it's kind of great to see that they're now discovering all these other factors that kind of play a part, because it just allows every player, regardless of what level you're at, to understand it more and hopefully kind of preempt it a little bit more in the future.
Excellent. And we haven't actually mentioned yet, but you're following a particular team, Ollie, with this in this documentary.
Yeah.
Is that correct? And what team is it that you're following?
So it's Chelmsford City women's team. So I guess my local team. I'm from Chelmsford, so it's my local team.
And where did Chelmsford City? Do you play at the? I mean, I'm not a football fan, so I'm not. I don't watch football or follow football on any level. But do you play at the Chelmsford, at the stadium where the men's team play as well? Is that where you have your matches?
Yeah. So most of our home games are at the stadium, unless there's like a bit of a clash with the men's team if they've got like a cup game or something. But yeah, all of our home games are played there.
Yeah. And how long have you been involved in playing football yourself for, Emma? Has it been a lifelong thing?
Yeah. There's a picture of me, I think, that popped up in the documentary. I'm probably about 6 or 7, just in very interesting clothing choices, but just holding a football in my hand. So yeah, I've played since probably some of the earliest memories I have is playing football.
Excellent.
So where does that come from? Is that like a family influence, or did you just decide to do it? Or
yeah, all my family are very sporty. So my mum actually did she did springboard diving, the same as Tom Daly. So she actually dived for Great Britain and then was an international coach for like 30 years. So my brother played like semi-professional football. My cousin was a GB junior gymnast. Like, our whole family is just very sports orientated. So and I had ADHD and I have ADHD. So as a kid, my mum was like just throwing me into everything. But yeah, so I guess I did lots of different sports, but the diving and the football were the things that I really excelled at and just quite obviously had quite a big passion for. So they were the 2 that I kind of kept going long term.
So were you diving, like you said, your mum was a coach for 30 years. Was there a point in your life where you had to make a decision between like continuing diving more seriously or going down the football route more seriously? And what sort of age was that you had to make that decision?
It like literally exactly that happened.
Right. Okay.
So it was when I left school. I didn't do amazing in school. Just more of being a naughty child than not being academic. I'll be honest. So yeah, I got offered. So I grew up in Witham, which is obviously not far from Chelmsford. Mum being a single parent, traveling was difficult, and I got offered a chance to go and continue my diving training at Crystal Palace in London. So the next step was training for the Commonwealth Games when I was 15, and then I got accepted for like a football college, which back then, I mean, this was like 20 years ago, women's football was not very big at all. And this college was in Suffolk. It was like a football academy and a rugby academy. And they had connections and links over to the States because women's football was always big back then in the States. So it was not an easy decision, but I think I was just more passionate about the football, and I didn't really know where it was going to go. But the fact that it came with like a college kind of placement as well, that was the option that I took.
Excellent. And Ollie, from as a sort of a documentary filmmaker, how did this film come about? You know, the having the opportunity to follow this story and to help create this story and to document the story. I mean, how did that come about after, obviously we spoke about the summit mentality last time. What was the kind of path to getting this film made and your involvement in it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm quite similar to yourself, James. I don't follow football at all. Like I go and watch football with my friends and stuff, but I'm not a football fanatic. But growing up, I loved football. Like football was everything. I remember when I was in primary school, the one thing that I wanted to be was a football player. So like as part of my upbringing, I played for a football team, did all of the youth and sort of the age groups and stuff. And then it went into men's football, and I stopped playing at men's football because like I just didn't like the environment. I think men's football is incredibly toxic. You get a lot of people that are showing up just wanting to hurt people, and I'd come away from games basically just feeling like, I'd just be annoyed. Like we'd win the game, but I'd be annoyed about something where someone just like tried to break my leg or something. So I stopped playing, and then like gradually after that, like I've not followed football for years now. So this is a bit of a weird project for me to kind of come into. But essentially, I reached out to the club because I was looking to make a video for my portfolio. And obviously, I made the Summit Mentality film last year and really enjoy shooting sport. And I thought a football video, there's a lot of opportunity there to for like dynamic shots, and I could create and edit that would be really great for my portfolio. And I reached out to Emma because Emma, I think she was the first person that came up on LinkedIn that was linked to the club. And we set up a call. And I think, as is a trend for Emma, a call that was meant to be 30 minutes took about 2 hours because we were just chatting. And it was Emma telling me her story that kind of inspired the film. So it went from being sort of a promo piece for the team to then being something like a little bit more personal about mental health and football, and as well about the kids that are sort of coming through the age groups. Like Chelmsford City as a club, they've got like they're set up in such a special way. Like they've got kids, like they've got like girls teams in all of the age groups near enough, which you don't get at a lot of clubs. It's such an asset for the club. So the kind of video like touched on that a little bit and how nice that is to see. And so we made this sort of 5-minute film about Emma's story. We called it Emma's Story and sent it over to her. And Emma loved it and was like, "We want to do more. What else can we do?" And funnily enough, like last time I was on this podcast, we spoke about the Fabelmans briefly. But I was actually going in to watch the Fabelmans. I got those messages from Emma. And I replied saying, like, what if we made a documentary? Like we could do something like follow half of the season or whatever's left of the season and make something a little bit more broader about the grassroots game. And so, yeah, that's how the film sort of came about. I was sitting down to watch a film about a man who wants to make films and was arranging to make a film. But yeah, that's kind of where it started, and it all just kind of came on from there.
No, that's excellent. I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I know obviously Pete's not going to be watching it this Saturday, but I'm sure we'll talk about it at the end, a way that, people will be able to watch it kind of more widely. And like I said, we have lots of people listening in America, and women's football's huge over there. And it's something that hopefully we can get, bit of an international kind of lots of people watching. And I mentioned as well, because like I say, that's the thing about documentaries, I think. In a lot of ways, I mentioned just before we started recording the Welcome to Wrexham program on it's on Disney, I think, isn't it, with Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney and Wrexham Football Club. And even though I'm not into football, and my wife Steph is not into football at all either, we watched that And because it's so much more about the stories behind the players, and they focused actually quite a few episodes on the Wrexham women's team as well in that, which was really, really interesting. And some of the most interesting bits of the documentary weren't even really about football. They might have been about the supporters or the story behind people who've been following Wrexham for 60 years or whatever, you know. So I think you don't necessarily need to be probably, I don't know, I haven't seen this one yet that you've made, but I would imagine that you don't necessarily need to be a football fan to get something from the documentary. In the same way with the Summit Mentality, you didn't necessarily need to be into running or mountain climbing to get something out of that. I mean, is that does the documentary have kind of like, although it's anchored in women's football, I suppose it's more about the people behind the game as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think a big thing that we're trying to do is kind of show how passionate the girls are for the game. So that's a massive thing. Like, I actually, Welcome to Wrexham was a big inspiration for the film. There's a few shots in the film that I basically just nicked like straight from the opening of that documentary. But what I love about Welcome to Wrexham is the town is such a big character in it, and in our documentary, the club and the club culture is quite a big element in it, because the way that Chelmsford's doing things, like they're not running, they're doing it for all the right reasons. Like there's a lot of male egos in the women's games, like lots of coaches that are kind of doing things for the wrong reasons. But Simon, who's running the team and doing a lot of stuff for the club, like he's doing it for all the right reasons, and that really comes across in the documentary. And I think that's kind of what we want to get across as well. But yeah, it's not just for football fans. I think there's something that everyone can take from it.
So Emma, how long have you been involved at Chelmsford or been a player at Chelmsford for?
I joined Chelmsford in 2019, I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what have you been doing? Had you been playing for other women's teams previously to that, and then you moved over to Chelmsford? I mean, have you been?
No.
Oh, okay.
So I guess my story is very similar to lots of other people, you know, work and life get in the way. So I played football up until I was about 17. So got to a good level and stuff like that. And then there was a few things that happened, unfortunately, that resulted in me actually getting removed from the college that I was in. And because of just the way it happened, it's easy when you look back now, you can see, or I can see, that I just wasn't mentally in a very good place. But at the time, you know, when you're 17, you don't know yourself at all. You don't really understand it. And because of what happened, it sent me on a bit of a downward spiral for a couple of years, and I actually never played football again until in 2019 I kind of hit rock bottom when it comes to mental health. There's not much further you could go than where I was. And one of the things that kind of I thought would really help me get better and move forward and kind of get back to being myself was just being able to play football again and having things in my life that I just looked forward to and enjoyed doing. So it's kind of, yeah, a lot of people think I played like my whole life, but slightly different.
And so sorry, go on, Pete.
I was going to say, so how much of your time does it take up? Because obviously when you were younger you could play, and then you said life gets in the way. So, you know, presumably you work and you've got a home life and all that sort of stuff. So how big was the adjustment you had to make to fit it all back in again?
Quite easy, just because of circumstances, really. The reason I couldn't fit it in when I was working is I've worked in fundraising for 13 years and the hours are a little bit all over the place. So I actually I lived in Birmingham for about 6.5 years with work, and I did play for Solihull Moor Ladies there, which is a good level. But I never got picked for a game because I finished work so late. I was always half an hour late to training. I couldn't get there in time, and the level they're at, unfortunately, if you can't get to training on time, you're not really going to get picked. So it's not like me, but I kind of gave up on it. So that was the only kind of stint that I had in between. And then in 2019, like I said, when the lockdown was a bit of a blessing for me. I know it caused a lot of people problems, but for me, it was kind of the opposite, because I worked in events at the time. That stopped overnight, and it just allowed me to really focus on me. I was self-employed, so I got government grants. I bought a paddling pool for the garden. and I focused on walking and getting myself back in a good place mentally. And then, because I left my old job when that happened, I actually got offered a new job, still in fundraising within the same company, but a desk job. So then I started a 9-to-5 job. So all of a sudden, everything was just kind of, I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but aligning for me to be able just to have that work-life balance again, which was the most important thing for me at that time. And I'm very lucky that my boss at work has known me for 13 years. So he makes sure that I travel a lot for work, but I never travel on Sundays because I have a football match. You know, he makes sure that if I need to travel and go and do something, I don't have to do it on a Wednesday, because we train football on a Wednesday. So I'm very lucky that I work for a great company, but also I guess my priorities changed in the sense that I didn't need to be a workaholic anymore and didn't want to be. I am a little bit. People probably think that's funny, like, that know me. But yeah, so that was it really. Just circumstances changed and priorities changed, and football became probably one of the most important things in my life, really.
I think that sounds amazing, because like you mentioned work-life balance, and you know, I work for myself now, but I've worked in a company years ago, and you were just expected to be there all the time, work hard, you know, all that sort of stuff, like you would be expected to. But then that whole thing of having a boss who's like, right, you know, you as an individual can't travel on a Sunday, you can't, like, you know, work late on a Wednesday and stuff like that, when other people might be able to, which is fine. I think that's brilliant. And like, the more we could have of that within companies, the better, because then people get it just makes people happier, right? Because then you get happier workers and happier people in general.
Exactly. If you feel good, you do everything else good, is my kind of motto. But yeah, I am very fortunate that the company that I work for is all about its people. You know, when you work in fundraising, it is people based. So they very much have that ethos of, yes, obviously you need to get your work done and stuff like that. You know, I have missed the occasional training session where I've had to travel, but if I can do it by doing both, then yeah, they're all for that, because they know I give 100% to anything I do anyway, and they know that. So they have that trust in me. So, but yeah, I do agree. A lot more companies should be more about the people and look at them like an individual person and not a number.
And how did you how was that transition back into playing football after, or you know, football becoming one of the main parts of your life, having had this big gap where you weren't playing football? Just, I mean, even just on a physical level, going back to playing football, your fitness, your conditioning, your touch of the ball, your, you know, all that kind of stuff. I mean, how hard was that to kind of almost try and pick up where you left off sort of many years previously?
Initially, it was very scary. That was more, not so much the football, but more like the mental health kind of side. I turned up to like 2 training sessions and just sat in the car and didn't get out because it just didn't have like the confidence to do it. And then I was shocking. Like, my mind still knew everything that I needed to do, but the legs just couldn't keep up with anything. So actually, it was a real roller coaster. So I started training. The first game that I played for Chelmsford City was a pre-season friendly, and I got injured and rushed to A&E. And I tore all my ligaments in my ankle. It was like a balloon. And then I couldn't kick a football for about 8 months. And then the first game that I played back was the last game before the first lockdown. So my initial time was interesting, and it was like a running joke for about a year after that of like, oh, do you reckon you're going to play more than 10 games this season? Like, I spent a lot of the first season after that just picking up lots of injuries. I had like 2 concussions, 2 black eyes, like all sorts of like little bits and pieces, groin strain. A lot of it was just down to, like, I'm an extremely determined person. So if I'm running after the ball, if I want to win it, like, you're going to have to take me out, or I'm going to fall over because my legs can't keep up with my body kind of attitude. So I think that caused a lot of the injuries. And then since then, I've been doing a lot of work outside of the football. So I go to the gym now, I have a personal trainer, and just kind of trying to keep myself fit so that I can carry on playing, hopefully for at least another year.
Yeah.
But I've now been injury free for like all this season, touch wood. So it's okay.
I was gonna say, all the way through that, I bet you were thinking I should have chosen diving.
Yeah, that's true.
You land on a soft water.
Well, you say it's soft, but when you dive from 10 meters, you hit the water about 35 miles an hour. So it's not quite as soft when you land flat belly, I'll tell you that.
So can I ask him, if you don't, I mean, if you don't want to, can I ask how old you are approximately? You don't have to give me the exact age.
Yeah, of course, I don't mind. I'll be 37 in July this year.
Cool. Now, the only reason I ask is because obviously a lot of people listen to this, they don't watch it, you know what I mean? So some people watch it on YouTube, but people might not know. And it's interesting because a lot of the people that we train ourselves, we talk to on the podcast and who listen to the podcast are kind of probably more like in their certainly 30s, but more like 40s, 50s even, and so on. And I think that you mentioning coming back to the sport, you know, in your probably, you know, mid 30s now, you know,
I was
and so
32.
Yeah, and you want to play at least another year, which is going to take you to kind of maybe 38 kind of years of age. And you do tend to, I mean, just people in general, you pick up more injuries and more niggles, and more things tend to go wrong as you get older, especially playing such a physical sport as football, you know, where you're, you know, there's collisions, there's so many moving parts involved in football that you can't really legislate for or kind of predict. So but you did say just then that, you know, you've got a personal trainer now, you're training in the gym, you're having to kind of, I suppose, take your health, your body, your resilience a bit more seriously now than maybe you would do if you were playing football in your teens, don't you?
Yeah, it's the recovery that I think is the big difference. Like I've said, always obviously clearly been into sport and stuff like that, but I think it's quite nice that like, I don't think I necessarily would have had the motivation to get fit again. Like I've also quit smoking. I haven't smoked for 2 years as well. So, you know, going back into football again has given me all these kind of extra add-ons, if you like. But yeah, so I have a PT. I now do cold baths, which are horrible, by the way, but they're really good. I use a physio. I've got like a sports massage lady. So, but for me, that's like money well invested, because it's the football that has been the driving force for all that to happen. But that's only going to benefit me when I don't play football anymore. So it's kind of a win-win, really.
Do you think I was just going to quickly ask, sorry, Pete, do you think maybe when you stop playing football, you know, and it may be, you know, a year, it may be 2, it may be 3 years, whenever it is, do you think you'll still be involved in football now, maybe from, you know, coaching or helping the team in some way? I mean, do you think you'll still be involved in the team and football in general when you stop playing yourself?
So I'm actually already involved. So I actually look after all of the sponsorships for the whole of the women's kind of side of the club, from the first team down to the youth. And I also look after most of their social media and help to put together like some of the posts and the match day graphics and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I'll probably continue doing. And then potentially, you know, maybe be able to have a seat on the board and have a bit more of a voice and an impact, because I feel like I could make a big difference that way by utilizing my skills that way than maybe just coaching. But yeah, I was kind of involved pretty much from like 6 months in, because I've been involved in fundraising and sales all my life. When I arrived, like they had no sponsorship really. The badge wasn't the same logo as the rest of the club. Like there was just so much mismatched stuff, and that wasn't anyone's fault. It just kind of been taken to as far as it could go at that level without someone kind of owning it. So I just thought I could make a big difference by using my skill set there.
Excellent. Were you going to ask something, Pete? Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, this is something I've heard on a couple of different podcasts recently, actually. And hopefully it doesn't ruin the documentary. But you don't have to answer the question if it will do. But which comes first? So you say, the mental side of it and becoming mentally strong and stuff through playing football, or the physical side, the way I've heard the question asked is which is more important, or which comes first, because there's one downstream from another one. And there's different answers, isn't there? Because people think you need to sort your head out first and then you'll get fit, or you can start your fitness first and then the mental side comes with it. And obviously you've been on both sides of that. So what would you say to that?
I don't think there's one answer to that question, because I think it's I think it's different. I think it's different for everybody, but I think it is a bit of a revolving circle. The hardest bit is actually making a start, if that makes sense, because obviously when I started, I was mentally not in a great place and clearly physically not in a great place. So it's a tricky one to answer, but I think it's just a revolving circle, because I do believe that you can be physically in the fittest state of your life, but if you don't walk onto the pitch mentally prepared and thinking that you're going to win the game, then you're probably not going to perform the best you can, because I do think subconsciously it affects your physical performance if you're mentally not on point, if that makes sense. Or it definitely does for me. So I think for me, my mental drives my physical, because it's the way that mentally, it's the way you talk to yourself, the way that you kind of, gear yourself up for a game and all that kind of stuff, that makes me perform physically to a higher level. So that's how I would say that.
Excellent.
That works.
That's good, because Sean, who we had on the other week, Sean Conway, who we mentioned to Ollie earlier, he was talking about his endurance stuff, and he said it was someone else who said it. We mentioned it to Paul McElroy, didn't we? It's like he said it was 100% mental and 100% physical as well. So he had a similar view, I think.
Ollie, can I ask, from your experience as a kind of a filmmaker and having done the Summit Mentality and then come on to this, which I think is your second kind of feature documentary, what did you learn from the first one that you kind of brought to this one? Or is it just about capturing as much footage as you can, and then it's most of the work's done in this sort of editing process? Do you know what I mean? Did you look for different things in this one the second time around because you had that experience from the first one? Or just kind of I'm just interested to know.
Yeah, I mean, probably a lot of the stuff that I've learned, I probably can't pinpoint. It's a kind of an evolution of experience. This project was a lot more difficult than the Summit Mentality film. The Summit Mentality film, that the core event was a 24-hour race, and then we did a series of interviews around that. So the timescale very short. For this one, we started filming in November 2022, and we were filming through to we got the rest of the kind of story footage in July, the presentation even that they had in July. So the scope of this project was a lot bigger. So it is kind of apples and oranges, but I'm not really sure what I would say I've learned. I guess kind of, talking to people and kind of the questions that you ask, and as well, when it came to putting the final edit together, knowing what bits that I would need to link the scenes together, because this film kind of evolved very much. So we've not really spoken about kind of what the overarching kind of story of the film is, which is the team want to get promoted. They've been trying to get out of the league that they're in for years now. And last year, the year before this film was set, they came really, really close. Missed out on promotion by just 1 point, lost it on the last day of the season playing a double header, which a double header is 2 60-minute matches against one team that you play back to back. They needed to win a game and draw a game, and they lost one of the games, and so that was really sad. So the idea of the film is they're coming back from that moment, and they're going to play and win this season. So that's kind of the story. We're going to win the league this year because we came so close last year. But then the setup of the film is Gabby's injured, her centre-back partner's injured, top goal scorer is injured. Bex, who's top goal scorer, she scored 40 goals in the previous season. 2 players leaving from injuries, and as well something we didn't mention, the track at Melbourne Park was being redone. So half of the season they're playing without their home ground. So a tremendous amount of odds stacked against the team. We want to get promoted. Like it's going to be really tough. So I guess the main kind of storytelling thing that was difficult for me was navigating all of those difficulties. Because like saying it now, it sounds that's obviously what you'd make a film about. But then at the time, it's trying to work that out, that is the story. So it's been a real kind of journey to kind of bring this film to life. And I won't lie, it's been really difficult. It's definitely the most complicated project that I've taken on. And to make it, when you watch it, for it to feel so simple and seamless, that has taken a lot of work to craft. But yeah, it was the natural progression going on from making such a simple project about 3 lads taking on their first ultra marathon to taking on, you know, a team of 15 girls when you've got a full side, and the coaches and everyone else sort of around the team. Yeah, it was a tremendous kind of undertaking.
So was it made fully with the cooperation? Obviously, it has to be, I presume, with the cooperation of everybody. So everybody was kind of on board. You're here to make this film, this documentary. You're documenting the season, or you know, this period of the season, and you had kind of access to talk to everyone you wanted to talk to, and everyone was kind of on board with this, and it got the support of the club and all the rest of it.
Yeah, it was kind of weird because it was like I'm just like when I'm filming a documentary, I just look like a random guy with a camera. So it's like you don't have the whole brand. Like, I think some of the girls thought that I was just like a bit of a creep just standing in the corner watching. But yeah,
Rosie said that on the radio, didn't she? She was like, but not in a creepy way.
Just standing in the corner with his camera. Yeah.
Well, that's it, yeah. So I mean, they gave me a good amount of access, but as well, I feel like there was kind of a bit of, they don't want it to be a distraction as well. So when they're training in the lead up to the games and stuff, I tried to just sort of operate in the background and not get involved too much. But yeah, I mean, I think when the team, like when they see the film, and I think they knew, like Simon especially, like knew what we're trying to do with the film. Like they know that, yeah, they were like fully cooperative.
And has anybody at the club sort of, have many people seen the full film now, edited and the finished article yet, or not really?
Emma's seen the most of the film, but she hasn't even seen like the full cut from start to finish, the full final draft.
Yeah, I did say to him, like, I don't want to see like the whole thing. I want the first time, because I've seen quite a lot of bits of it, but I want the first time I experience that to be with the rest of the team, like watching it live. So, and
that's kind of made it difficult as well. So we're showing the film on Saturday for the first time, and we've booked out kind of the biggest venue in Chelmsford. And I think because none of the girls have seen the film, they're not really promoting it because they don't know what it's going to be. So
they don't know how they're going to be portrayed.
Well, exactly. Like, yeah, they don't want to bring all of their friends and families to see something where, I don't know, they fall on their ass or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, but no, I'm really excited to see their reaction, and hopefully it's better than they ever expected it would be.
So is there like a lot of people from the team and from the club and like the coaches and all that? Are they all going to be there on Saturday to see it? Or most people will be there, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, Emma sort of knows more.
Yeah, so there's about, I'd say, about 80 people in total. So like the youth players, for example, that were in it, we sort of invited them to bring along like one of the parents with them. A lot of the first team are there, so the team that I play for, and I think like they've realised as the time's gone on and as it's gained a bit more traction, and you know more people have been interested, they're like, actually this is like a proper, you know, documentary, a proper short film, because it's not something that they would have ever expected at this level to be done. And then we've got a few kind of guests that we've invited, a few sponsors, obviously the gentleman who funded the project or sponsored it, so hopefully he will be there. And we also invited the chairman of the club as a whole, and he's coming with his wife. So it's a good kind of mixture of people from the club.
No, it's fantastic. That's really, really great. And how are you obviously you're showing it on Saturday, Ollie, for the first time. Are you happy with the finished product the finished film that you've?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, considering the way that the story went, I'm really pleased with how it's come together. That sounds like really vague, but yeah, I am really proud of how it's come together, especially considering like. But I had help filming some of the games. We had Chris from Chris Berry Media, who films football matches. So he was filming coverage of like most of the games, but everything else, it's just been me. So all of the filming, all of the editing, story writing, all the rest of it, it's just been me and obviously Emma as well, helping organise everything.
I was going to say, I offered to help out with videoing and stuff, but I am not good enough. 100% not good enough. I thought I could be until I watched Ollie work, and I'm just like, yep, I'm just going to offer my help, so I'm doing the right thing, but I know it's not going to be needed.
You're just going to stick to being a natural producer.
Yep, that's where it's at for me, I think.
Excellent.
So if this doesn't spoil it as well, where does the name come from? So it's False Nine.
Oh,
are you allowed to tell us?
I asked that question at the start, and then when my
I did ask that right at the start, didn't I?
Yeah, my laptop decided to reboot itself.
Okay.
But Ollie, do we want to answer that, or do we want to?
Let me introduce you, saying what it is. So I'm a purist artist, so I kind of I feel like you shouldn't really explain like the meaning of something. It's up for the kind of the person to interpret it how they interpret it. So that's kind of what me and Emma have discussed. Like, should we explain kind of what the meaning behind the film is? But I feel I'm happy for Emma on the Help Odyssey podcast to explain what the meaning behind the film is.
If you'd rather not say, that's fine. We'll get.
No. Yeah, no.
Okay.
Emma,
I feel bad for asking the question.
It's funny because when you asked it right at the start, I was like, when you asked it right at the start, if the laptop hadn't cut out, this is what I would have said. I'd have been like, so Ollie, do you want me to answer it? I can give you my interpretation of it, which is the whole point of it. I've actually even got it like written down in front of me, which is funny. It's actually on a little sticky note there. It's been there.
Hang on, I've got a good point actually, because you're going to give your interpretation of it, and this will go out after it's been screened anyway, so people will have already made their minds up of why they think it's called.
There you go.
I've covered myself there, so there we go.
So the way it works, this is so random as well. The fact that you've asked this question, this has been up on my notice board, or my vision board, if you like, for about a year. Well, ever since we came up with the name, which was last year sometime, long time ago. So False Nine is a position effectively on the pitch, which, you know, even if you're not big football fans, most people know that. But it never used to be. It actually started as a bit of a made up position, a bit fake, like people didn't take it seriously, until people like the likes of Harry Kane and stuff like that came along and absolutely mastered that position. And then it became almost like a recognized position on the pitch. So, and it's kind of, as a position, I've got written down here, it's disruptive, it's creative, and it creates opportunity. So if you kind of resemble that as almost like an analogy to women's football started as a bit fake, a bit made up. People didn't take it seriously. No one kind of gave it any attention or any coverage or all of that you can go into. Fast forward to today, it's become recognized. It's a professional sport, etc., etc. So that's kind of how, I mean, it's different for everyone. I think Ollie thinks of it in a different way as well, but that's for me how I kind of relate it to the overriding kind of arch of the film, if you like, or the name of the film.
Excellent. No, that's brilliant. And Ollie, you're going to maintain your artistic integrity, and you're going to be okay. No, I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to seeing it now. And you know, I was looking forward to it anyway. But having spoke to you both, and obviously I'll be able to meet you both in person again on Saturday. Will be fantastic. What is the best way? I mean, Ollie, first of all, maybe for you as as we start to wrap up, what's next for you in terms of, have you got another project that you're kind of moving forward with at the moment, or that you're working on next? I mean, what's the next documentary or piece of work that you're going to be working on?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you remember, Travis, who has been on the podcast, part of the Summit Mentality film, he's just announced this week that he's doing a High Rocks competition. Well, not a High Rocks competition, a High Rocks challenge. At his gym, he's going to attempt 12 duo High Rockses in 24 hours. He's doing that in mid-April, all for charity. And I'm going to be covering that event with him. So that's kind of my next sort of big event. And then sort of in the meantime, I need to get a little bit of work, because this football film has taken over my life. I need to get some clients into my video production business. So on the other side of my business.
Excellent.
That's the other side to it. Sorry to jump in as well, but that's the other side to it as well. Is yes, we want people to watch it, but also hopefully the more people that watch it, and you know, if we do any further screenings and stuff, I'm hoping that will then give Ollie a bit more of a recognised name as well for the work that he's done. So then it will only help, hopefully, him bring in more work and bring in more projects at the same time, because he should be, I know it sounds a bit cheesy, Ollie, sorry, but he should be recognised for the work that he's done, because he has literally put his heart and soul into this for like the last year of his life. So yeah, so if anybody does watch it and has seen it by the time this is out, and you love the work that he's done, drop him a message and get in contact with him, because he's one of the best people I've ever worked with.
Excellent. Oh, that's superb. So Ollie, if people do want to follow you, we did it last time you were on, but to follow you, to find out more about your work, you know, either commercial work that you do or the kind of more creative projects and things that you're doing, like documentaries and things like that, what's the best way for people to follow you on social media or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. So my Instagram is sort of the best place, or my website. So it's at Oliver James Creative on Instagram. And my website is www.oliverjamescreative.com. As well, there'll be a page for False 9 as well, where you'll be able to hear a bit more about the film, which will be oliverjamescreative.com/False 9. At the minute, there's a program on there for the event, but after the event, it will be, by the time this comes out, it will be all of the information of what we're going to do with the film next, and the trailer and all the rest of it. That's my side.
Brilliant. And Emma, if people want to, I mean, hopefully as well, people watch this and they'll maybe become more interested in grassroots women's football, and B, I suppose, if they happen to be around the Essex, the Chelmsford area and stuff, people will be more interested in the Chelmsford women's football team. What is a good, how do people find out more about that and the team and the games and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, if it's specifically us they're interested in, exactly the same. We have a really good presence on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook and website. And it's all literally just Chelmsford City Women. Website is Chelmsford City Women FC.co.uk. And the Instagram and kind of Twitter tags is just Clarets Women, or if you put in Chelmsford City Women, then you'll find it there. So
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, I mean, thanks so much for both of you for joining us today and talking about this, because it's like I say, it's not something we discussed before, and it's nice to sort of discuss the film and the kind of artistic way the film was made, and then also the subject matter of grassroots women's football, and we've just touched on a few bits obviously with you, Emma, there. I mean, the short that you made originally, Ollie, that was just called, was it Emma's Story? Is that what the short was called? Is that going to be is that available anywhere to watch, or is that shown anywhere?
I think we'll probably release it a bit more widely after the film's released, because a lot of the content from that short video is in the full film. So that will probably come out a bit later, I reckon. But that would be on my YouTube channel, which is again Oliver James Creative.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks so much, both of you. That's great. And yeah, and I can't wait. Like I say, it's Thursday today in the real world, and so it's in about 48 30. Yeah, in about 48 hours, I'll be watching the film. So yeah, really looking forward to seeing it. And like we say, as soon as we're available, as soon as we know, where it can be watched more widely and stuff, we'll share that obviously with everybody, and we'll talk about that on the podcast going forwards. But yeah, really look forward to seeing you both on Saturday evening at the premiere of this film at the big theatre, which will be great. Anything you'd like to say, Pete, as we wrap up?
Yeah, I had a bit of a thought. I don't know anything about football, right? But I had a bit of a thought at the beginning when Emma was telling us about the choice you had to make, and I was thinking, like, if you'd have been playing Italian football, the diving training would have come in handy, wouldn't it? Am I allowed to say that? I don't know.
Of course you're allowed to say that. I'm not offended because I don't dive. So, and that's one of the benefits of women's football. I'm just going to put it out there. A lot of people like that about women's football, is that they just get up and get on with it. Whereas the men, they like a bit of a roll around first.
Bit of a lie down.
Exactly. They need a break.
Excellent. Oh, thank you so much, Emma. It's absolute pleasure. Lovely to meet you, and great, Ollie, to catch up with you again, and look forward to seeing you both at the screening in Chelmsford. And thanks a lot, obviously, as usual, Mr. Peter Lant. So we're back next week. My mind's gone blank. If we've got someone booked in for next week.
Yes, we have. You know who we've got? Tim Anderson, isn't it?
Tim Anderson. Sorry, we've got Tim Anderson from North Carolina in the USA. Tim Anderson's coming on to talk about his new book, A Simple Book of Strength, which I've just read, and which is currently in the air on its way over from America to be posted to Mr. Peter Lant in Bath, so he can have a read of it before we interview Tim next week.
No, Tim, he's probably folded it up and just chucked it, and it'll actually make it here because he's that good.
Do me. Yes, we've got Tim Anderson back on, and then obviously Tim and Dan are over from the States, April the 13th and 14th in Chelmsford in Essex, for a unique weekend workshop, and Mr. Peter Lant will be joining us as well there, so that's going to be great. Ollie, what date is the High Rocks thing you're doing with Travis? Can you remember off the top of your head?
No. Oh, I think it might be the 6th. I think it might be the 6th of April.
Okay. Oh, because I was going to maybe this doesn't need to be done on air, but I was going to contact you about maybe a little bit of work when we've got this workshop over with Tim and Dan coming over from the States. It's the following weekend, but I'll ping you a message about that.
Okay, cool.
Everyone doesn't need to know about that. That's fine. Right. Okay. Brilliant. So Ollie and Emma, I'll see you on Saturday night. Pete, I'll see you next Thursday with Tim Anderson for episode 189. Thank you, everybody, for listening, for watching. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review, preferably on Apple Podcasts for us. Give us 5 stars and write something on there. And when we can read the new ones, we will be issuing some merch. We're still on top of this. I know it's dragging, but we are getting there. And we'll be back next week with Mr. Tim Anderson from North Carolina in the USA, talking about A Simple Book of Strength. Until then, bye-bye.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favourite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com, or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.